Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network. And today we're going to be discussing the first 3 episodes of Dune Prophecy on HBO and HBO Max. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined this time by Liz Seiko.
Hello.
As well as Vinny Albano.
Hello.
So this show just wrapped its 3rd episode of what is to be a 6-episode potential first season of this. It's not supposed to be a limited series. It's supposed to be an ongoing series. It's been in the works for years, trying to capitalize on the success of Denis Villeneuve's first Dune film, which released in 2020, correct? Yeah, the COVID year, 2020. There was a lot of production problems with this show.
There was
a change of showrunner. There was changes of actors. So this is one that's been kind of all over the place for a number of years. Liz didn't know that coming in. Always fun sharing information with you, Liz.
Very fun.
So we watched the first 3 episodes. All full disclosure, I didn't get through the 3rd episode. That was a time constraint problem. However, I was informed before we started recording of what happened. But we're just going to do a larger discussion of the show thus far. And we're definitely curious what our audience thinks of the show, because I haven't heard a lot of buzz about Dune Prophecy. So let's start there. Usually when a new show comes out, especially on something like HBO, right? Like massive network, Netflix, you find out about a show right away. No one's talking about Dune Prophecy. So is there anyone you're talking to, or are you seeing anything on social media, either Liz or Vinny, about, because it's a big franchise now at this point, led by Timmy and Zendaya, but obviously this is a prequel like thousands of years before the films. So
no, I have seen nothing. I feel like even when I go and try to look at just like critic reviews or like higher like reviewer profiles, nobody's really reviewing it. Or the reviews that I have been seeing, they're very just kind of like, this isn't bad, but it's not great. So I think that it's living in that very medium space television area, which for me is actually probably the worst space to be living in as a television show.
Like the middling ground.
It's horrible. It's death for a television show. You'd rather be known as the really bad show on TV, because then people still will watch you just to see how bad it is. So I think that it's just a lot of information in the first 3 episodes so far. As somebody who I've never read the Dune books and I've only seen the Dune films that recently came out, so I'm a little bit even in the shadow of like the entity of the world of Dune, because I know that there's like a complete other storylines that they haven't even touched on. There's just a lot of information, and I don't know if they're handling it the best that they could be with a television show. Like a first season television show. So I think that's maybe why people are standing off from it, because they want to see what other people are saying, and people aren't really saying anything.
Yeah,
Vinny.
I 100% agree. I echoed the same sentiment. I have heard no talk about this show, and it also, like Liz said, echoing that same sentiment, like it really does not really establish itself as a great show. It's just fine. But it's not bad.
It's not.
It's fine.
I would say it's definitely not a bad show. The production is good. I think that they wanted to skirt when they had the initial reaction, probably from those initial episodes that were filmed with a different showrunner. I think that they probably were even more confusing initially, possibly. This show does a balancing act though, too, because the show takes place technically 10,000 years before the events of Dune. So you're not going to see any cameos from any characters that you like. You're going to see the same names of the same houses that we've seen: the Harkonnens, the Bene Gesserit women. You're seeing the Atreides now kind of creep in throughout other episodes. But it's combining this present day of the show, which is dealing with the sort of surrounding Harkonnen sisters, while also giving you the backstory on how they joined the Bene Gesserits and got their abilities, and then you have other characters sort of sandwiched in between. And I definitely agree with what you were saying, Liz. I think that there's already too much happening. Like, they're trying to establish their own, I said this off camera, they're trying to establish Game of Thrones within Dune because it fits the mold of HBO, because it's an IP that is rich in lore, right? But they're already trying to like swallow too many pills like at
Mm.
one time, and it's not that it's hard to follow necessarily, because I do think the more you get along, like we're into 3 episodes now, like you start to see where they're going with things, and you're starting to understand things differently, and alliances between characters and understanding the relationships between people. But there's just so much happening, and it doesn't feel as quality as what Denis had put forward with Dune, and I think that it really hurts it because of that.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that statement, actually, I feel like because Dune itself is a world that is very Game of Thrones esque, like even the movies, but because it's that political opera, you know. However, I do agree that this show is trying to fit within that HBO model too much, and for me, I had no issues following what was going on. I understood everything. It's just that what is happening here isn't all too compelling. We're 3 episodes into a midway point. It's only going to be 6 episodes, and yet I'm still not compelled on where we're going. When it comes to world building, we dive more into things, and I think fans of Dune will be appreciative of that. But we still don't learn anything new. Like, we know what the Bene Gesserit is capable of. We know their position within the political power. We know I mean, it's not really tackled too much in the Dune present day in the films, but we do know of it is referenced of what happens in the past. So but it just lacks that compelling nature, you know, and it lacks, you know, I'm not too connected to really what's going on or these characters. So we're already halfway in, and I'm just kind of like, okay, like literally, I wish I had more to say,
Yeah.
you know.
Liz, how do you feel?
Well, I think when it comes to just like basic television, also, there needs to be a protagonist and an antagonist. And I don't know who we're supposed to be rooting for in this show, like at all. And that's a tough pill to swallow because we're 3 episodes in now. We only have 3 more. And I don't really know whose storyline I'm supposed to be like rooting for. Obviously, like in structure, it's probably the lead character who is Valia, played by Emily Watson as the older Valia. But I don't know. There's just something about her character that I don't think that they've given us enough time with her yet for us as an audience to establish like a relationship or like a love for her character yet. And I get it. Are you okay, Vinny? Are you
Yes.
dying a little bit?
Yeah, I went down the wrong pipe. Yeah.
You're good. You're good. I was also concerned. I'm like trying to listen to Liz, but I'm like, please, Vinny, be okay.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
Please take your breath. Take a breath.
It's really okay.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay.
My apologies. I was like, shit. Am I gonna?
Vinny fucking hates the show.
Yeah, wow.
All right. Anyhow, sorry.
No, I don't know who we're rooting for. Like, I truly don't know. And then also, I think that I don't love the pacing of this show. I find it very, very fast for. Like the first episode for me was extremely fast with all that information and so many characters to introduce, which I get. Sometimes that works because you want people to feel like they're on a roller coaster from the beginning. But I think these types of shows where it's an hour and like 15-minute long episodes.
Every episode, the first 2 episodes. Well, yeah, no, I think all 3 of them were like over an hour. It was like an hour and 5 minutes, hour 6 minutes.
Which give yourself a little bit more space. Set up the scenery, set up the relationships, make sure everybody knows who their players are. And then also, there have been so many deaths already, but like we don't even get to care about those deaths.
They're not substantial because we have no connection to the characters.
No, it's just literally for plot, which I get, but there's just a lot of different plot lines happening, and I still can't connect the through line throughout all of them, which again is scary because we're already halfway through this season.
Yeah, I think so. I don't mean to compare it so much to Thrones, but I think at the same time,
Yeah, you're comparing it a lot.
But because I think at the same time, I'm trying to think of it as like HBO's model because it's their show.
Maybe they're trying a new model though.
I think they're trying a new model, but I think they actually maybe should have followed Thrones more in terms of the narrative structure.
Mhm.
Like with Thrones in the beginning of the show, you know that you don't like these people and you like these people, and then
Yeah.
there's a lot of people in between, right? And then you form your
Mhm.
own opinions as you learn more and you get more experience with these characters. With this, like you said, there's no establishing, oh, why am I supposed to root for this person? Because like in reality, Travis Fimmell's character, Desmond Hart, as soon as he comes on screen, I'm like, that dude looks pretty badass. I think I'm gonna like his character.
See, I was
That's
the
your
complete
thought.
opposite. I was like, he looks kind of douchebaggy, so like I don't know where he's at, so I'm not gonna root for him.
Okay, interesting. But
I'm gonna rebuttal both of you guys. Actually.
Oh, I love
Vinny's
it.
like, I hate him.
Hit us
And he's
with
like-
it, Vinny.
So, well, before I say what I'm gonna say, I do agree with the pacing. I think it really comes to the editing.
Mhm.
The editing of that first episode was terrible. I am 100% like I 100% think that first episode was originally completely structured differently, and then someone came in and was like, okay, we need to Blade Runner this and add a really bad voiceover to just exposition dump for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Shit that we kind of already know. And if you didn't, it's just kind of like, okay,
Or you get that information as the season goes on because you start putting pieces together.
Exactly. And yeah, the editing, even in little moments, was like, wow. Yeah, so I agree with just the pacing of the structure. I mean, I could be completely wrong here, but going off a hunch, just the way it's edited, it feels like that was like a post-production decision when it came to that, and it really like just bogs it down. However, rebuttal time for what you guys are talking about, the morality side of things. And I think when it comes to a show, even Game of Thrones, you don't need like a clear bad guy good guy per se, because in Thrones too, I mean, like Ned Stark, we lean more towards him because he's good, but he still has like the line of morality is very gray, and within the world of Dune, they constantly want to do that, even with the movies of creating Paul, and Paul becoming almost a dictator at the end,
Tyrant.
to where you draw that line of morality and you gray it, and you establish this sentiment of, hey, this is a cautionary tale about who you look up to. And I feel like they're doing a similar thing of like they're graying that line of morality within this world, similar to the other stories in this world. And instead of kind of going the messianic route with Paul Atreides, for this, they're kind of establishing like a cautionary tale of like, be careful of who controls you and who controls your opinion within the Bene Gesserit. I think it's just that we're struggling to become attached to these characters because they're just simply not that compelling. Like, I think you could have a bad character. I think you could have a main character that is a bad guy, or you could have two bad guys going against each other, but the writers of the show aren't making them compelling enough to the point where we're attached to them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it necessarily needs to be like, oh, they're good, so I'm rooting for them.
They just need to be likable on some sort of level.
Exactly.
And I just don't know if there's anything that's like drawing us to these characters yet.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Yeah.
I'm just like really not clicking.
Well, I think part of it might just be in the depth of the writing too.
Maybe.
I mean, part of it could also be that they wanted. I'm so curious on what that first show looked like, right? Because you had a completely different showrunner. So it probably was conceptualized as an entirely different thing,
Mhm.
or at least maybe somewhat adjacent to what we have currently. Vinny, we good. It's okay. But yeah, no, I agree. I think that it's hard to latch on to characters because of how poorly they're written and because there's not enough for you to root for with any of them yet.
Mhm.
So I definitely feel similarly. Let's try to think of a pro.
Okay, well, I love Emily Watson in this. I
Okay.
do think that the acting for me is a little bit of a saving grace, at least for the present time. The flashbacks, I'm not going to really talk about because I'm not loving the acting in those scenes, but I think the present time Valia, she is totally understanding the world. She's understanding that character. She's showing us that she's fighting for something, what she's scared of losing. There's vulnerability, there's power. So I really think that Emily Watson is just the pillar in the story, but they're just not giving her like a ton of screen time still, I feel like, for being the lead character. Yeah, I don't know. They're just showing us like what she had, like maybe, I don't even know if she was in the last episode for one scene.
Yeah,
I think so,
for
right?
like a couple scenes, but yeah, it was mostly flashback.
Just flashback, which I don't want to get into the flashbacks because I really don't like them. I don't think that they should be doing flashbacks, and I just think that it's too much of a modern tone. And I think it's because the actors are younger, so they don't really know how to change their behavior to not seem like they're 2024 actors.
Yeah.
And it's just bothering me because Dune is such a stylized world. And Vinny and I were talking about this. It is, you worded it really well, but you were talking about how it's like, away from AI and away from technology, which we'll get into. And so I just feel like the younger actors just are talking like how I talk. And it's like, no, you're in Dune. You're about to be like part of the sisterhood. You should be completely embodied a different way, not like yelling at each other and like using your hand gestures all the time like somebody from New York or New Jersey does. So like that's my one beef with the flashbacks. Anyways,
I think
I
think narratively it actually probably would have been smarter to, especially if you're going to do like a condensed season 1, just wait to do flashbacks until you get to a season 2.
But I don't even think we need the flashbacks.
No,
Are they
agree.
giving us
I
anything?
agree. I agree, but I'm saying that especially if you're going to try to dive into how these characters became who they are, if you are interested in that, you first have to
establish
them as who they are, and they're not doing that. They're trying to. So the first episode, you have both. You have like some flashbacks, some present day of the show. Episode 2, I believe the whole thing is in present day, right? The whole episode, which is my personal favorite.
Mine too.
I think it was yours. And then episode 3 is basically like 90% flashback, right? So I agree with what you're saying with Valia. The interesting thing to me was like, I kind of liked the whole thing. I was like laughing, but I was like, this is crazy when they bring in Pruitt to be Nez's potential husband in this setup marriage. And I'm like, where is this going to go?
Oh, well, yeah.
And I was like, so the fact that we lose that character so quickly also was bothersome to me because like story-wise, I'm like, where can they go with this? Like, she's going to marry a kid? Like, what is that going to mean for the family? Like, I was more interested in that. And then they just kill him off just like that.
Well, and then I was under the impression that we were going to follow the princess's journey turning into like a part of the sisterhood.
Which we still may, but
they just completely went off the rails though from that original storyline of the first episode.
Because structurally, the editors don't know what the fuck they want to do. Because it felt like they were going in that direction. Then they would go, well, no. She needs to fall in love with the Swordmaster. She needs to fall in love with the Atreides.
We need to have a sex scene.
We need to have a Euphoria Spice Club sex scene in the middle of the premiere episode of this show. For reasons I have no idea. It was insane. But I agree with you.
It went on for very long.
It was.
Yeah.
There was a lot of moaning.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that long.
It was long.
Really?
There was enough.
I didn't think it was like uncomfortable long.
It wasn't uncomfortable long, but it was just like, we're in Dune. I don't know if we need this right now. You know what I mean? Like, not that, trust me, I'm not one like, first of all, there's a study out. Don't know if you saw this. The young people don't want to see sex in television and movies anymore.
No, I didn't know.
So maybe that's why young people aren't watching Dune Prophecy. But
well, I think I think that the whole thing that they're kind of dancing around is the element of spice in this story too, because it's supposed to be that the sisters don't really have like full access or know about it yet. It's kind of still an underground thing. If I'm wrong about this, Dune
don't come at me in the comments.
Don't come for me in the comments, but I'm like 90% sure that that's true. So I feel like they're starting to like sprinkle in the spice factor for us.
But then that's another added element, right? Is that underground, like you get a full scene of like these underground people from the club, and they're like, make sure you like stick to your people, to the Atreides guy.
Mm.
Like
There's so much happening. Like
There-
I truly can't keep up.
I
with
think
it.
I think it's way too much happening for the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, yeah. It's so for one, like Spice runs everything in Dune, like from drugs to the harvest to the Space Guild, which is what we see in the first movie. I don't know if you remember them. They're the guys who. I honestly don't know the specifics of it. I don't remember it, but it's they first show up to Caladan to be like, "Hey, Leto, who's Oscar
Isaac's
Isaac,"
character, yeah.
and it's like, "Hey, we're giving you ownership of Arrakis
Yes,
now."
I do remember. Yes, I
Yeah.
do remember.
So Spice runs everything. However, you guys did bring up something that I personally forgot, and I'd like to mention is the Princess Nez.
Mhm.
That's actually a positive for me
I agree.
because
Her as an actor?
yeah, her as an actor as well as her character. However, I agree with Liz where by episode 3 I forgot about her. Is she even in episode 3? I don't
She's
even
not.
remember.
No, she's not.
Yeah.
She's not.
Yeah, so but she is the one compelling character that I do like here because she has like a flavor to her. She has like this young, you know, flair, that flame inside of her, you know, even when she the boy that she marries, the of House Riches, she
Oh, Richese?
yeah, she pulls him aside and goes, I'll stab you myself if that ever happens again.
Yeah.
So I like her character, but I don't know if this series is gonna pull together by the end of this. And this is kind of a long-winded response. I do apologize, but in the end of this, what I'm trying to say is like, by the season finale, is this real? Is it? Are we going anywhere? You know what I mean? Like, are these characters gonna have like a hoorah at the end? Like, like where are we leading to exactly? You know, and what stakes are really being established here? It feels like there's no sense of stakes within this story, and the conflict is just very like up in the air. You know,
I'm worried we're gonna get to a point that we got to at the end of season 2 of House of the Dragon, where we're gonna be like,
There's no ending.
Oh.
Like,
all right.
there's no
The
finale.
bigger problem with this is that you're trying to establish a universe from scratch. Like I shouldn't. Universe is the wrong terminology, obviously, because we know the world of Dune. But this is taking place 10,000 years before the events of Dune, the movies. So you need to reestablish that world. You need to. First of all, there are probably people. No, I'm sure it's a small select few. But there are people that probably haven't seen the Dune movies that might be watching this because guess what? They sit down and watch HBO every Sunday.
Maybe.
So what about that? Then you have to reestablish everything for people, and they do it again in a bad way with the exposition dump. But the compelling argument I think that you brought up, Vinny, is a great point because to me the only scene that had even a remnant of compellingness to it was the marriage scene. And I do think that was a credit to Sarah Sophie Booth Nina, who plays Princess Nez. And Emily Watson, I think, obviously does a great job. I also think Olivia Williams, who plays the older version of Tula, their chemistry and the few scenes that we get of them together, I think it's very obvious and it feels like they can be sisters. But besides that, you have a lot of green actors that are trying to elevate this material that also might not be the best material to start with in terms of the writing. So I think that that's playing into this as well. Like narratively, it's not working. Your performers aren't necessarily holding up to the material. You don't really know where you want to go narratively. I think that they're in trouble. I think that the show is in a lot of trouble 3 weeks in. We still have 3 weeks to go. But I don't know where else. Like, there's not much to, like, Vinny, there's not much to talk about because we don't know where we're going. Like, through 3 episodes, we don't know where we're going.
I know. The only like other they know how to end an episode on a anticipating note.
I didn't see the end of episode 3, so I can't.
Well, for like so the first episode they end with like the burning happening.
Yeah.
And then the second episode they end it with like the whole thing of her going into, I don't even know what you call it. when
into that world, like
into like the world where like what is it? I don't even know.
She goes
The
to speak.
agony, the
Yeah,
water
the
of
agony.
life. Yeah.
It ends with that, which when they ended that episode, I was like, okay, if they're going this like very dark,
Doesn't it end? I think it actually ends in an even more compelling thing. I don't think it ends
What?
on that.
What-
I think
you
it
have-
ends in Valia telling Desmond to put the knife to his throat, and then he says, "I always wondered what your fear
oh,
would be,"
you're right. It does end on that.
which I thought was a great
Or,
scene.
great
Mm.
episode. I loved the second
Yeah.
one. And then this one, again, they ended on a very interesting note of Tula having Lila's character being put into the spice to try to revive her. So I think that they know how to end the episodes. I just don't think they know what to do in the middle of the episodes and how to get to that
'Cause
ending.
they don't have enough meat on the bone.
I think that they're
which is
like
scary because it's only a 6-episode first
I
season.
know. I think that they have these push pins in the wall of like, okay, the end of the episode is this, the end of the episode is this, and the
We
end
have to
of the
connect it
episode's
back to Atreides.
how do we connect it
bring
back
it to
to
Harkonnen.
these points?
Mhm.
And I don't know if they know how to do it. Yeah,
Vinny,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Hmm.
If you were in charge
Yeah.
with what you currently had, the framework of these first 3 episodes, right?
Hmm.
How do you think that they could right the ship within the next 3 to get you on board in a more positive way?
Let's focus on Travis Fimmel
Okay.
and his character, Desmond Hart. You guys also reminded me again, that is a positive I have. You guys already mentioned it. His character, there's a lot of mystery behind his character, and that honestly, that mystery is more compelling than anything they've done with the Bene Gesserit. Because, like, what the hell's with the burning? Like, what he do with the sandworm? Like, what's going on? And what's his motive exactly? Because he is telling the truth, but he is omitting some of the truth. You know, he's omitting, but he's telling the truth. So his character is really fascinating. And I think we should focus on him and their relationship with that. I don't like as cool as I think the history of Dune is and the world of Dune. Like, I love the world of Dune, but the AI thinking machine, you know, the that lore to the world, not as compelling. Like, the way season or episode 3 ends, I'm just kind of like, okay, that's cool, you know, but like, I guess it adds conflict now because now we're learning that the Bene Gesserit is secretly still using thinking machines, yet they established this order on the idea that thinking machines are forbidden. But I'm still like, that's not the reason I love Dune or the world of Dune. I just think it's a cool detail of like the whole idea of the butler jihad and the mass killing of this thing of the AI is cool, but like, it's not something that I think we should necessarily like focus on. I'm more interested in like what's going on with Desmond Hart here, and also Princess Nez. Another really quick thing I wanted to say is you mentioned House of the Dragon, and this is neither a pro or a con, but something funny that I'd like to bring up is that this really is a very similar story to House of the Dragon, where in House of the Dragon, right? We have Rhaenyra and Viserys and everything that's going on, but essentially House of the Dragon is 2 parties battling over the prophecy of the Song of Ice and Fire. And as the audience, we know that that's not going to happen until like hundreds of years later, right? But the characters, they think that's going to happen now. They think Aegon, my son, is the chosen one, which is very similar here, where they think their prophecy is coming true now. They think Desmond Hart is this guy, is basically Paul Atreides. But realistically, Paul Atreides is not coming. The Kwisatz Haderach is not coming until 10,000 years in the future. So neither a pro or a con, just something I wanted to point out. Said it is, we're following a very similar story to also another HBO property.
Which I think they can get away with that also because it takes place so many years before the central story of these characters we're following. I think part of what makes the Dune film so interesting is the fact that they're based so heavily in politics,
Mm-hmm.
the politics of what's happening, and this also you're not getting as much of it, or again, it's not as, I'm trying to think of a different word other than compelling, but compelling is the one that's in my head now because you've said it so many times. But it's just not
Captivating.
Yeah, like it's not catching my attention anywhere near as much as understanding these different families and what they stand for and what they mean in the world of Dune. Comparatively, like I look at some of the Harkonnens in this and I'm like, that's not a Harkonnen. And I look at the Atreides and go, that's not an Atreides.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't feel like it still has that luster.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it's the unfortunate reality too of like not having someone like Denis. I think he might have been an executive producer on this, but I don't think he's on it at all.
Oh, I
Which
was
if
gonna
he's
say if he was an executive producer on this, I'd be a little surprised.
I'm still look. He is not attached to this at all.
I don't blame him.
I think it makes sense. Is all I'm like.
Hmm.
I just think that the quality is nowhere near as good as the films, and it's going to be different when you're talking about television versus film anyway, in the medium and the actors that are in the Dune films. And
Maybe they surprise us.
Maybe
the
they
next
do.
3 episodes are fire and everything that we've been hoping for.
maybe, but thus far, it's not awful. It's far from awful.
Even though we've just ripped it.
I don't think it's bad either necessarily. I think there are still redeeming qualities to it. I just think that the skeleton is there, but there's no meat. Like there's nothing that is really wanting us to keep watching necessarily. But it's not something like The Idol.
Oh no, The Idol I shut off.
Yeah,
I literally couldn't keep going.
We couldn't continue.
Like this I can keep watching. I check my phone more than I like to on each episode just because I start getting a little bored. But it's not like I can't watch it because it's that bad.
Yeah, I think if this season continues the same way throughout the rest of the season, and I feel the very same at the end, I'll say it's maybe a 7, and I probably won't watch a season 2 if it comes out.
Do you think it gets canceled?
I think it's very dependent on the viewership.
It's not doing great, I feel like.
And that's the problem too, because think about a show, you haven't watched this yet, I don't think. Think about a show like Penguin. Every single week, word of mouth was so good on that show that it continuously grew. I haven't heard a peep about this show.
Yeah.
So, audience on YouTube, if you're watching this show, let us know in the comments. You might be one of 300 people watching.
Let us know if we're wrong. Let us know if you love it and we are missing it somehow.
I don't know. I feel like that's pretty much it. Do you have anything else?
Not really.
No.
Well, I think the only thing that I would say is piggybacking off of your last statement that you made about the politics is that this actually, I feel, has more political gears at play than the Dune films. But I think the reason why they're not as captivating, aside from not having, not having characters that we can really grasp onto, but also in this point in the chronological timeline, the houses aren't as radicalized, which I think adds to the films where the Harkonnens become like super fascist authoritarians, and the Atreides become super militant, and the house Corino, which is the Imperium household, becomes super like they like in the films they literally wiped the Atreides off the map just because they knew the Atreides were getting too popular and they didn't want that for their own benefit. But here, it just like feels like a weird place in the chronological timeline to be making a compelling story, because it's although there are more political gears, they're not moving as fast or as sharp. There's not like those sharp edges to them of like radicalist extremism that made in the future Dune so I'm not gonna say the word compelling again, but yes. Yeah.
Well, we just keep saying compelling. It's just not compelling, guys. No, but let us know in the comments what do you guys think about the show? Are you guys watching this show? Did you guys bail after episode 1? Are you guys continuing on? Are you gonna wait till the end of season 1? Definitely want to have a conversation with you guys and see. We'll be back to cover this at the end of the series. We're halfway through. We waited until we got to the mid-season. We're gonna wait until the end. We will cover the end of the show, and we'll see kind of how we felt when it wrapped up. Maybe we change our tune. Maybe we think differently. But be sure to let us know your thoughts. Like this video if you can, and subscribe to us here at the Culture Wave Media Network. We're covering everything in film and television right now. December is a very busy month for us. We're coming off of all the major releases. We have Wicked, we have Gladiator 2, we're about to cover Moana 2, we're covering Yellowstone week to week. Vinny and Mark just got done covering Arcane. Mark and I are going to start covering Skeleton Crew. There is so much to talk about here, especially all the holiday season stuff will be coming with our Christmas episode later this month as well. So be sure to check that out. And if you don't follow us on all our social media handles, all that stuff is below me in the video right now, as well as in our description. Just signing off, I'm Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Liz Seiko.
And I'm Vinny Albano.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.